Ladies and gentlemen, it's better to debate a matter without settling it
than to settle a matter without debating it, and that is why we have the Great Debaters Contest, Season 8, Kisumu Region. I am your host, Esperanza Kapanga.
And I am Chris Boru. The motion being debated today is income tax should be abolished.
Proposing this motion, we have the Giants from Maseno School.
And opposing the motion, we have Chulaimbo Secondary School. Proposer number 1, you have 3 minutes to make a statement.
In his poem, Robert Frost says, "Two roads diverged at a road. I took the road less traveled by, and that made a difference." It made a difference for Caleb Baraka from Maseno School here to propose the motion that goes, income tax should be abolished. So, what is income tax? Income tax is a form of tax levied on earned and unearned income, net of allowed deductions. Should is a modal auxiliary verb showing obligation. And abolish, this is to end a law, system, practice, or custom. This is according to the Oxford 8th Dictionary. Now, we have several forms of taxes. We have value-added tax, we have customs tax, we also have corporate tax. Kenyans are expected to contribute 254 billion Kenyan shillings more to finance Treasury's 2.53 trillion budget. The Kenya Revenue Authority is expected to collect 1.743 trillion, up from the 1.48 trillion collected in 2018. So, when you talk of income tax being abolished, what are we saying? Why are we saying that income tax should be abolished? Reason number 1, this is because this money is lost to corruption and embezzlement of funds. Recently, the Office of the Auditor General released a report in November 2017 citing 841 million Kenya shillings lost at Kenyatta National Hospital in a medical contract. This money, if used well, would have been able to champion and achieve sustainable development goals such as good health and well-being. The Auditor General also represented a report on the National Youth Service where almost 1.6 billion shillings gone through the window. 1.6 billion shillings. Now, we have the International Transparent Corruption Index, which says that countries like Syria, Somalia, Burundi, Zimbabwe, which are one of the most corrupt countries in the world, have the most lowest development rate. So, if we are taxing these citizens, where is the money going to? If this money is not going for development projects to help these citizens. So you see why we are proposing the motion that income tax should be instead done away with. The International Transparency Development Index cites the same countries as countries which are low on development, yet they are having income tax. I agree when Hira Nikwil, a tax advisor at Deloitte, says as long as the government can't account for the revenue collected, then taxpayers should not feel guilty for not paying taxes. On to my second point. Income tax should be abolished because there are individuals and companies which evade tax. Today is the deadline for filing returns. Now tell me how many Kenyans will file returns which are based truly on their income tax. That is why we stand here to propose the motion that income tax should be done away with completely. Thank you.
First proposer, you have 3 minutes to make a statement.
Income tax should be abolished. But why should it? You know, I'm fearing that if it should be, then our country will be now swimming in a sea of poverty and overdependency on the foreign countries. Abraham Lincoln, the great president of US, once said that a government is for the people, of the people and by the people. You know, maybe we are talking about what we don't know. What's income tax? Income tax is amount of money or a levy that is imposed on a person's salary by the government. And the government, as we have been told, that is for the people and by the people. And that's why I say a government is just an institution which rules, or rather is given the responsibility of ruling people. But the people should rule themselves because they are the one who choose the government. Now, if we decide to abolish income tax, we will face several challenges. Mboya Herbert from Chulaimbo Boys. I am here to oppose the motion which says income tax should be abolished. My first point, the abolition of income tax denies the government the source of revenue. As you all know, the government needs money to rule or plan for the development of a country. And that's why main source of government revenue comes from the income tax paid by the citizen of a particular country. And this revenue will help the government in planning for activities such as developing sectors, for example, the health sector, the education sector, by enrolling free education. For example, our country, Kenya, free education was rolled out in the year 2002. And now the government is also rolling out a program whereby students will be catered for by the NHIF program. Secondly, as you all know that agriculture forms the backbone of the Kenyan economy, and agriculture needs support from the government. And the government also has to do or to offer some incentives to the farmers. For example, according to information from Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, article Kenya at a Glance 2018, it says that agriculture contributes to 26% of the gross domestic product and another 27% linking with other sectors. Agriculture also employs 40% of the total population and 70% of the rural population. And lastly, agriculture accounts for 65% of export earning. My dear friends, I am begging you to join us in opposing this motion, in that the income tax that we are paying as citizens is the one which helps the government from organizing its plans. Thanks.
Second proposer, you have 3 minutes for your rebuttal.
Strongly affirming this motion is Mogambi Regan from Maseno School. I refuse to be cheated in things that I know. When my opposer talks of free secondary education, when it's subsidized free secondary education, my opposer says that income tax is the source of revenue to the government. That is a fallacy. It's not the source of revenue to the government. It happens to be the largest contributor. There are other ways. You have said these funds are for the people. I want to ask you, if these funds are for the people, why are they going to corruption? Is corruption for the people? I agree in full compliance with the wisdom of Vincent Hugo when he says, when the time comes, no force on earth can stop an idea whose time has come. My friends, the time has come to abolish income tax. Not only has the time come, but the right time. Why are we saying that income tax should be abolished? Income tax functions on the assumption that the taxpayers from the same income group are the same. It functions on the assumptions that people from the same income group have the same problem. It ignores the fact that people have different circumstances such as health issues, circumstances such as educational issues. These circumstances need to be solved differently. Income tax doesn't provide for the needs of each and everyone. It provides for the needs under a generalized term. This brings about inequality. Instead of being a problem solver, look at what it has done. What is the problem? It has brought about inequality. A problem we should be solving under the Sustainable Development Goal number 10, which talks about reduced inequality. On to my second point, I'd like to clarify that why we should do away with the income tax is that it discourages working and saving at the same time. How does it do this? Income tax rates are high. Why should a common mwananchi toil and sweat where he won't receive the fruits of his labor? Why should a common mwananchi sow where he won't reap? Most people are afraid because government takes parts of this money, and they do this using the high income tax rate. When we have high income tax rate, the overall product prosperity of the society will be weakened. Ladies and gentlemen, even without a license, I agree that I've driven this point home. Thank you.
Second opposer, you have 3 minutes for re-examination.
This money is lost to corruption. There are many companies which evade tax. Income tax does not satisfy everyone's needs. I mean, as a Kenyan student, you do know that you receive textbooks. And where did this money come from? From income tax, definitely. I mean, I, as a physicist, know the importance of having a physics textbook. I mean, as a physicist, imagine not having a textbook, not knowing how Robert Hooke looks like. Just imagine that. Isaac Wabwile from Chulaimbo Boys, and on to my first point is that by the time we attained independence in 1963, our economic level was the same as South Korea, and as per now, we are not at the same level. So how will we be able to get there as South Korea? This is by income tax. This income tax will be used in development. It will be used in maintaining the roads in Kenya. It will be used in the building of social amenities. Amenities we all enjoy. I mean, take for example, a boy, me, living in Dubai, having the chance to wake up every morning to see Burj Khalifa. I mean, how many of you wouldn't want that? How many of you will want that? Definitely all of us. The second point is that abolishing income tax makes a country's security vulnerable. I know many of you are wondering how, so let me take you through. See, a country is secured and protected by its defense forces. Security is provided by the armed forces of Kenya and the police as well. These policemen and soldiers need to be paid. And trust me, if you're working and you're not being paid, you will not do that job well. You will not do that job well. Third point is that it's the government's responsibility to prevent national disaster and managing disasters in scenarios where it is inevitable. For example, in terror attacks and floods, like in Tana River, people lost their homes. People lost lives. People had to be airlifted from these places. And which money was being used? Income tax. I repeat, income tax. So fellow debaters, let us not go for this motion. It is an ideology, a flimsy idea. Thank you.
For the question session, the proposers have been asked, if income tax is abolished, then where should the government get its revenue from? The opposers, on the other hand, have been asked, if the biggest advantage of income tax is security, then can other sources of revenue for the government still help us attain the same security? Proposer number 3, you have 3 minutes to answer the question.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Bible says that if it is your arm that makes you sin, then you better cut it off and throw it away. It is on that note that time has come for us to embrace the facts and abolish income tax. That's why Anthony Harvard stands before you to strongly affirm the motion that states income tax should be abolished. Answering the question
on alternative sources of revenue. Let me enlighten you. Article 209 of the 2010 Constitution provides for sources of revenue as corporate tax, customs duty, value-added tax, excise duty, property rates, entertainment tax, and lastly, income tax. So it doesn't mean that income tax is the only source of revenue. Income tax is only one of the main. If we exploit these other forms of taxes, we are going to have substitutes for income tax and let the common citizen enjoy the fruits of their labor. Ladies and gentlemen, the opposers have failed to give us their sources that prove that textbooks, amenities, and services are provided only by income tax. What about these other sources of revenue? We have solutions that will come after abolishing income tax. If we put them to place, you're going to see their benefits. One, we could tighten the noose on tax evasion through empowering the Kenya Revenues and Revenues Authority. We can allow them to monitor these corporate societies after taxing them, after increasing the tax on these other sectors, abolishing income tax and taxing this and increasing the forms of tax on these other forms. We could monitor how they pay their taxes, ensure that all of them file their returns in order for no one to evade. Thus, we could substitute income tax. We could also empower the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission to combat corruption, hence reduce on accountability on revenue. You see, on Detroit News, 1.26 trillion US dollars are lost by developing countries each and every financial year. That's enough to raise the living standard of those who live below $1.25 a day for 6 years. If this is done, we could empower EACC to fight corruption, bribery, theft, and tax evasion. And doesn't it sound like a better way instead of burdening the common citizen with income tax? Thank you.
Faropuza, you have 3 minutes to answer the question.
If you see Impact Junior's man eating chicken, it's either he is sick or the chicken, but judge not. First, allow me to correct you the question you asked about other sources or how it assesses or helps in security. Let me correct you first. The government doesn't generate income, but the government receives income. I'm Midaho Frederick Angaga, aka Midaho. The choice is yours, from Chulaimbo Boys. Our proposals are talking about, or the second question you ask, other supplements. Yes, income tax is just one of the taxes that the government or we have in our country or in our nation or a certain nation has. Yes, it is a supplement. There are also others. We agree on that. Also, allow me to impose this question to you, my fellow proposers. You are talking about income tax should be abolished in our nation. Give us Nepali Sutras, give us epitomes, give us paragons of the countries in the world that are running without income tax, that are zero tax. Don't base your argument on fallacy. Tell us reality. Another question I'd like to also ask my proposals also to stress on is that our nation, we understand the nation we're living in. You can't say that you only work to pay tax. No, paying tax shows that you are a patriot. Paying tax shows that you feel the nation in your heart and you have our country in your heart. Allow me also to correct. You also asked about how income tax helps our nation. First, it helps in budgeting our programs. Like today, they're going to read about the national budget. It helps to budget. The government is certain about its daily activities and runnings of the country. The government is certain that by the end of this, it will get this, this, and this to help in running of the nation. Before I finish, allow me to accentuate and remember, Martin Luther King once said, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the matters or about the things that matters in our life. Income tax being abolished in our nation is something that really matters a lot. But if not addressed properly, I accentuate, if not addressed properly, then our nation will go in a stray way. I rest my case.
Proposition, you have 1 minute for your final statement.
Abolition of tax really matters a lot. Those are not my words. They are the words of my brother as he helps us in supporting the motion. Income tax should be abolished. Thank you so much for supporting us in our motion. Now, Investor Warren Buffett says that his secretary is taxed 30% of her income, and him, on the other hand, is taxed 17% because he has tax accountants who advise him on the exploiting of loopholes of income tax, loopholes. So you see, this income tax, if it is there, the rich don't even pay the tax. So why are we having something that is not bringing all people together to achieve it? Ladies and gentlemen, there are so many loopholes that multinationals see in income tax legislation to avoid paying taxes. For example, in Kenyan law, if you have not been physically in the country for 183 days, then the law does not recognize you as a tax resident. These are the words of Obul George, KRA Chief Manager in the International Tax Office. So you see, we don't need income tax. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to know that this income tax will not help us. It is just deteriorating us as a nation. Thank you.
Opposition, you have 1 minute for your final submission.
Once again, Frederick Midao from Chulaimbo Boys. My final submissions. We need to understand income tax means more spending of power, leading to more demand, leading to more manufacturing and production, hence leading to job creation in the nation. And also to avoid and to help our country, we need to pay tax. What do you mean? You all know that income tax is one of the acts or one of the taxes in our nation that helps in building our nation. Kenya is still a nascent country that needs a lot of tax or needs some income to generate or to help in development of its activities or of the country, and also the upkeep of its citizens in the nation and all their endeavors that they partake as a country. Therefore, we strongly oppose, we stand our ground that income tax is essential and very important and should not be abolished. I accentuate, should not be abolished in our nation. Thank you. I rest my case.
To Maseno team, Caleb, I admire your presentation. You are calm, relaxed, sure, and confident. To the other team, the opposite side, I must admit, Midaho, you did so well in that particular team. Your level of conviction and being passionate about your presentation was actually commendable. Thank you for being the best debaters in these two teams.
Looking at the conclusions and the very way you handled the questions, both of you, want to commend you because they brought focus into the debate. But one thing is that you lacked statistical proofs. As you were battling to show that income tax should be abolished, we expected you to show the magnitude of the contribution and also show that it is not significant in contribution so that you can abolish it. And as for you, we wanted to see the percentage of the contribution, such that if you remove it from the very tax that we depend upon in our economies, then you wreck the economics. Otherwise, it was a spirited motion, and we want to commend you.
Chulaimbo Secondary School, the judges saw it fit to award you 65%. Let's appreciate them. Maseno School, you managed to garner 69.5, making you the winners of the debate. A round of applause for them. Congratulations to both teams for a job well done.
Ladies and gentlemen, the debate may be over. Remember, the conversation still continues across our social media platforms. The hashtag is GDC for SDGs. We'd also like to appreciate our sponsors, Blaze by Safaricom, Brand Kenya Board, for making this show a reality.
We'd also like to appreciate our sponsors, Blaze by Safaricom and Brand Kenya Board, for facilitating these debates, and to thank all patrons and principals for availing the students for the debates. This is the Great Debaters Contest. I have been your host, Esperancia Kapanga.
Until next time, I have been Chris Buru. Stay tuned.